The Oklahoma Sooners added a big-time playmaker in the 2026 recruiting class.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year over at monarchmoney.com. He's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire at USA Today Sports. And on today's show, we're going to talk about Diego Pavia speaking with his chest fully out, talking SEC, Tennessee, Big Ten, NIL. We'll discuss everything Diego Pavia had to say in the third segment. Todd McShay, NFL draft analyst for ESPN, had some big words on John Mateer. We'll discuss that in the second segment, but we've got to start here. On Monday, the Oklahoma Sooners received a commitment from four-star running back prospect DeZephan Walker in the 2026 recruiting class.
Ooh, John, this is a good pickup. So he's listed at 6 foot, 205 pounds personally. Now, depending on what site you go to, you may see some different numbers. But when I looked at him on like Rivals and his personal, Twitter, everybody, fudges the numbers. But Rivals had him listed at 6 foot, 205 pounds. He's a bigger back, and he's one that hits that one cut and boom, he's gone. He's got some good size on him. I saw him standing next to DeMarco Murray. I said, yeah, he's got the wide shoulders. He looks like a solid back. I guess I need to see what the legs look like, what the thighs are, so we can know if he's truly a power back. But he's got good size and frame for a running back that we're looking for out of the Raymore peculiar area, which is actually closer to Kansas City than it is St. Louis. That's my bad. I had some intel tell me that it was St. Louis for those that have heard me talk about him in the past. But, John, I'm actually satisfied with this pickup. This is one of those pickups where you feel like Jim Nagy was heavily involved. He found a player that looked like they were underappreciated, and he said, no, go after him. About 48 days later, we offer him 48 days later, he commits. So it appears that not only the mutual interests are there, Oklahoma saw a diamond in the rough for this four-star, and they jumped all over it.
He's a really good running back. It really is. He's really fun to watch because he's got the game-breaking speed that you want at running back. He's got the ability to break away from a defense, but I really like his shiftiness. He's somebody that's patient behind the line of scrimmage, allowing his blocks to set up. And then once they do, and he's satisfied with what he sees, he gets downhill fast. He's got really, really good stop and start, and he's able to get to the second level really, really quickly. I like his lateral agility. To me, he just looks like an every down running back. He's a guy that you can hand the ball off to 15, 20 times a game, that you can use him out of the backfield, has soft hands, and is going to be somebody that creates big plays for you. He can run inside the tackles. He's got the speed to get outside the tackles and run away from linebackers, defensive backs. And he's somebody that's not easy to break down based on what I could see. You're not going to arm tackle him. You're going to have to wrap him up to get him down. And again, just a really, really nice addition. Had a number of Power 4 offers. I think the count I had was like 24 Power 4 offers or 25 Power 4 offers, and 9 of those were from the SEC. So you know that this is a kid that was on a lot of people's radars, a lot of college coaches' radars, and Oklahoma, again, gets a big-time addition.
Yeah, you could tell that he was probably looking to stay closer to home anyway. So in the end, it was between like Kansas State, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma. It was more of a close to home type situation. And then, of course, DeMarco Murray goes in there and he closes the deal. And him standing at DeMarco, it looks like he's about 6 foot. I think DeMarco's about 6'1", 6'2" anyway. So I give him a legitimacy when it comes to his height, but he does have a nice, like I said, broad shoulders. And as you mentioned, he's very shifty. Like when you go watch the huddle film on him last year, I cannot wait to see what he looks like as a senior. But as a junior, you could see him, he'll find the hole, does a little stutter, and next thing you know, he's gone. He's running right up there, and he's just going to outrun you after he finds the hole. And that was the one thing we were missing here at Oklahoma over the last, I guess you could say, couple of years, is a back that would see the hole, hit the hole, one cut, and then be gone. Like Salchuk had those moments when he was here, before he was truly injured. And you got more of that from Xavier Robinson late last season. And so you want more backs that can be able to do that, because it makes that opens up things. The offensive line is going to give you enough of a hole. The back sometimes needs to find it. And so Jaden ought to be able to do that this year, but he'll be gone. And so having a DeZephan Walker right behind like a Torrey Blaylock and then Tatum and Xavier Robinson, I think that gives you a solid running back room going to SEC, especially because Walker is, like I said, about 6 foot, about 200 pounds. You don't have a back that's undersized going into the conference. You've got some nice sizier guys that's ready to handle the grind of the SEC.
You watch a lot of running backs sometimes, and they might stutter behind the line of scrimmage because they're indecisive about what they're seeing ahead of them. He uses that stutter step really nicely to set up blocks. Like, he's not just sitting there waiting for things to open up. He's setting things up. And I think that is something that's an underappreciated value with running backs. It's not just, can you hit the hole? Can you find the hole? Can you set the hole up? Can you make defenders believe you're going to do one thing when in actuality, you're going between the guard and the tackle? Can you get them playing outside of leverage and then using their over pursuit against them? He's got good cutback skills. I like what you mentioned here about the running back room going forward. Unless they were to add a transfer portal back for 2026, that's a really, really intriguing running back group. And I think you can be very productive in the run game with Xavier Robinson, Taylor Tatum, Torrey Blaylock, and DeZephan Walker. Like, if that's your top 4, I know we don't have a lot of production out of Robinson and Tatum, and to be honest, you may not get a lot of production out of them this year. With Jay not leading the way, with Javonte Barnes back for another season, you may not get a lot of carries and touches for those guys, but the talent's there. I mean, we saw it against Alabama. I mean, we even saw it from Taylor Tatum earlier in the season before fumbles started really kind of taking him out of the rotation. He was arguably your most productive back in the first half of the season, even though the offensive line was not really run blocking very well. So the potential is there for them, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them go add a veteran back next offseason. But if that's your top 4, man, I'm intrigued, man, at least to see what spring ball would look like, what that, running back competition would look like to go into 2026. But I mean, where they're at moving forward, I think it's in a really good spot.
Yeah, and I don't expect Oklahoma's offensive line to be what it was last season for a while. We've actually, because now that we're in the Brent Venables era, we're stacking the offensive line players on top of each other year over year to where you've actually got some stuff behind each other. You got young players that are working their butts off to prepare themselves to play. We didn't have that going into last season as much because a lot of those dudes, they transferred out. Like, all your veterans left because it was a situation where, we're probably going to play the younger guys over you, because I've mentioned this before and I'm going to keep reminding y'all, this staff likes the guys they recruit. And they think the guys they recruit have the NFL traits, or at least traits to be able to compete in the SEC. So they're going to play them. Now, granted, you play a lot of young players, it's going to bite you in the butt. It doesn't help when your veterans get hurt. Right. So I don't expect that to be much of a problem, because a lot of the young players that we had last year actually got snaps going into the season. And so because of that, I expect this line to continue to grow year over year. I expect the best ones on the line to last 3 years. After 3 years, I expect them gone. And you're going to continue that cycle, which is what you want. You want to make sure that every year you got guys that are playing at least 2 to 3 years with enough snaps to where you feel comfortable.
Everything's moving forward in a positive direction. Now it's just a matter of running back starting to produce again. We had DeMarco Murray. Everybody believes he's a good recruiter. We just haven't had the production over the last couple of years to support that and to support the developmental aspects of that. Now it's time for some of these guys to step up and take on some big time roles over the next couple of years. DeZephan Walker, a big pickup for the Sooners. Another big pickup, John Mateer. NFL draft analyst Todd McShay had some really positive things to say about Mateer. We'll discuss coming up next year on Locked On Sooners. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. We've used Monarch Money, and when we did, it helped us to manage our finances a little bit better because we weren't having to look across several different bank accounts or credit cards to see what we were spending our money on. We could do it all inside of the app. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year over at monarchmoney.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Todd McShay, one of the foremost draft analysts in NFL draft circles, he did some evaluations on John Mateer. John Mateer being Oklahoma's biggest offseason pickup and somebody that a lot of people think will just be one and done at Oklahoma. Now, I did a video last week where I thought maybe you might be able to get 2 years out of John Mateer. Go check that out. But Todd McShay, I mean, had a lot of glowing comments about one John Mateer.
Yeah, so Todd McShay's new show, the Todd McShay Show over on YouTube and on Spotify, presented by The Ringer, where he's at now, he has been breaking down all the quarterbacks going that could potentially enter the 26 draft. So just kind of want to give you guys the context of why John Mateer was talked about with him. He went over Lenore Sellers. He went over Kate Klubnik. He talked about Garrett Nussmeier. But when he got to John Mateer, him and his partner, they were talking about it, and their scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the best, 5 being the lowest, every metric they had was either 3, 2, or 1, some 2.5s and some 1.5s, but they maintained above average for John Mateer. And the big thing he said, and even Jim Nagy tweeted out recently, that dude's one of the most competitive MFers that you would ever meet. And I think that was the selling point for them. And they were like, everything he does is like a highlight reel. And Todd McShay talked about it, how he was talking to someone else, and they would have a conversation, and the next thing you know, he'd be like, all right, I'm about to go watch the John Mateer tape. And they're like, what? You're going to watch Washington State? Yeah. I'm about to go watch John Mateer play. And you understood why. Like, he was so slept on with his talents at Washington State, nobody paid attention to him because it was, quote unquote G5. But when you see him and what he can do and the stuff he does, Todd McShay basically broke down and was like, I am in shock. Like, this is amazing. And you're going to have fun watching John Mateer. And I'm so glad so many people are coming around on him.
I think the other thing about John Mateer are the intangibles, the things that you can't measure, the things you can't see on tape necessarily. It's the stuff that has him compared to a Baker Mayfield, has him, for me, comparing him to a Jalen Hurts. It is the competitiveness. It is the somewhat quiet demeanor. I mean, can he be vocal? Absolutely. Is he going to be that way with his teammates? 100%. But with the media, he's a little bit more reserved, it seems. So he seems like a guy that is going to lay it all out there on the field. He's not going to hold anything back. He's probably going to put his body on the line, maybe a little bit too much at times. We're going to say, hey, okay, maybe go out of bounds this time, as opposed to trying to take on that linebacker as you're going out of bounds. Just go ahead and step out of bounds. But it's that kind of stuff that's going to give Oklahoma just a little bit more of a boost, give them a little bit more energy, a little bit more buzz, and it's going to make everybody want to go fight a little bit more, And I know people out there don't want to admit that that stuff matters, but it 100% matters. It reminds me of 2004. We're getting ready to play conference championship, and one of my fellow captains is in the parking lot getting a steroid injection into his shoulder, an anti-inflammatory, because he separated his shoulder in the semifinals the day before. And it had the rest of us geeked up. We were ready to go because our boy was about to get on the field with us. Couldn't do a whole lot, but what he could do was inspiring because he had that same kind of an edge. Now, totally different ball game, totally different level of competition, but John Mateer is going to bring that for Oklahoma's offense, and he's going to lead from the front.
Yeah, it makes me think about in the NBA Finals with Tyrese Halliburton, who hurt his calf. Mm-hmm. And some people are saying he's selfish for playing, and then others are saying would say he was weak for not actually playing through the injury. It's like it's a lose-lose situation. But when you have a player like John Mateer who's going to go out there, give you everything, lay it all on the line, regardless of his health. Yes, and like you said it perfectly, John. That's the one thing I hope he takes in consideration as a John, like you, John, that he recognizes that it's okay to step out of bounds. Don't take that extra hit.
Yeah.
Don't drop that shoulder. You're going to get some pretty big boys in the SEC. The last thing you need to do is put yourself in a situation where you won't be playing. We would like to have you on the field, my boy.
For all
the best way of doing it. Exactly. For every game. So the best way to do that is, sometimes make a business decision when you're out there 30 yards down the field.
Yeah.
No reason to be all, macho. Make a business decision, take care of your body, and lead. But seriously, on a serious note, the breakdown that Todd McShay had, he actually went through a whole bunch of plays. And this wasn't this wasn't a situation where Todd McShay was picking only the best plays. He was running with it. No, he was watching actual all 22 tape and was looking at different type of passes. He talked about one pass where Mateer's body was basically turned like 180 from where it was initially and was throwing it to his running back in the flat. And he was like, yeah, that's not a pass you would want to make. But the fact that he had the confidence to try it jumps out to the type of quarterback that he is. And Sooner fans, it's time to go ahead and just get gassed up. This man walks up there game one and he starts doing stuff. You're going to be like, okay, why didn't anybody tell me this? And I'm gonna remind you. Jay said it. John was saying it like crazy, right? Like that. We literally was talking about this for like the entire summer. Everybody that has watched go watch Washington State games. Go on YouTube. They are there. Just go watch the Washington State Washington game. Watch the Washington State Boise State game. Watch the Washington State Texas Tech game. Just go watch them. When you watch the tape, you're going to be like, how was this dude overlooked? And sometimes it's a situation where it truly is a story of an underdog. It truly is. It's one of those, nobody looked at him. He was not really recruited. And he said, you know what? Give me a year to learn this system. I'm going to take over. Cam Ward leaves, decides to take big money, and then you get 3,000 yards, 800 yards rushing, 44 touchdowns, something that, sure, you can say that it was whatever the competition was, but why didn't everybody else do it in that same competition? Obviously, he was an outlier, and to me, it's one of those where he's building himself up to where he'll be able to do the exact same thing in the SEC.
Yeah, you don't have 44 total touchdowns by accident.
Nope.
No, you have to go do that. And again, I've said it here, even if he's 75% of his production from last year, that's still a really good season, and it's going to put Oklahoma in position to win a lot of football games this year.
To me, with the wide receiver room and the talent he has around him, 3,000 yards passing is not going to be hard, especially because it's Oklahoma, and that's how Ben Arbuckle's offense is set. Yep. He should at least get the exact same passing yards. The rushing yards, I have no problem with saying, we'll see. But when you have a running back like Jaden Ott and teams have to pay attention to him, and in a wide receiver room that requires team to pay attention to him, I have a feeling that they'll have this offensive line who's going against probably arguably the best defensive line in the SEC tuned up to where they're ready to open up holes for both Ott and Mateer.
Another guy that made a big move last offseason to the SEC and made a bunch of waves because he beat Alabama last year, Diego Pavia, kind of did a little bit of a tell-all, and he let it all hang out. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Diego Pavia, he said so many things when he was on Bussin' with the Boys on, I guess, the episode released on Tuesday, but it made waves. He had Tennessee in his sights. He had the Big Ten in his sights. He had Michigan in his sights. He had something for everybody out there. Like, he was spitting fire. One thing that was really interesting is somebody offered him $4.5 million to leave Vandy to go to another SEC school. I'd be curious, like, what the discussion was, and we could maybe play the who was trying to get Diego Pavia away from Vanderbilt game maybe sometime. But yeah, so many things. But the thing that we're going to talk about first here is what he had to say about the Big Ten. You know, he said, why would you want to go play in the Big Ten? You want to play with the best, and the best is in the SEC. The exact quote is this. You got to think about this too. The SEC is like nothing else. The Big Ten, you have Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State. The SEC, you have all dogs. You only have like 4 games a year in the Big Ten. The SEC, it's like week after week, you're going to get beat on. You want to play with the best. You don't want to play with the Big Ten. You ignore those calls when discussing if Big Ten teams were trying to reach out to him to get him to leave Vanderbilt.
So John, as I think about this, I'm be honest, I really want to know which team offered that kind of money. You think it was Duke?
Kentucky.
No, it feels like it was out of the SEC.
He said an SEC team was trying to get him to come out to leave Vanderbilt for $4.5 million.
It's got to be Georgia then.
Maybe Georgia?
It's got to be Georgia. They're the one that's probably needing a quarterback the most. I mean, Oklahoma has their quarterback. Texas has their quarterback. Tennessee had their quarterback at the time. LSU has their quarterback. I don't know if Mississippi State has the money, but they could have been potential.
Maybe it was Tennessee. Maybe Tennessee came calling because they lost their quarterback. And
after Nico?
What? Maybe we could pull Diego over.
So is that why he's throwing shade at Tennessee?
Because he did say that in the years to come, Vanderbilt's going to be running things and going to take steps ahead of Tennessee.
I mean, I love the confidence. I think it's hilarious.
It's a little much, but I love it.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Like, I like Clark Lee or whatever. He ain't even James Franklin right now. And that's the one thing I give to James Franklin is he was able to find a way to at least go bowling on a regular basis at Vanderbilt, which is probably one of the more impressive coaching jobs in college football. Mm-hmm. It's not that easy. I mean, it's up there with Matt Rule and Baylor dang near playing for a national championship and getting a Heisman Trophy winner. Mm-hmm. Certain jobs are just hard. They come out the gate hard. They're a challenge, and it's pretty impressive to see when you can do it.
Yep.
With that being said, John, Diego was wilding. Like, I love that he called out the Big Ten like he did, while at the same time I'm asking the question of why. Like, why are you throwing shade at them? Like, what is your angle? There's got to be a reason why you're doing this. And I'm thinking through this. I'm like, I don't see, is he trying to manipulate the playoffs? Is he trying to help with pushing the Big Ten to follow suit with the SEC and say, oh yeah, let's go 5-11. We'll gladly take most of the spots. what is the play here, John? And that's the thing I'm trying to figure out with Diego Pavia.
Yeah, I have no idea. This is like one of those wrestlers that is kind of young and up and coming, and he's just throwing shade at everybody
Fair.
just to get some clout. But it's Diego Pavia, and
He's already got clout.
Already has enough, right? Like you'd think that after beating Alabama last year and leading Vanderbilt to a bowl game, that he's like, I've spoken with my play on the field, but no, dude's like, let me just target everybody. I'm surprised he didn't call out the Pac-12. I mean, he was throwing shade everywhere, or the Big 12 or the ACC, but no, he had Big 10 squarely in his sights. And I think some of it is warranted, because you go look at a school like Penn State's schedule and they're playing nobody in non-conference.
There really aren't.
Do they have some tough conference games? Absolutely. But give me a conference that doesn't have tough conference games. Shoot, I think the Big 12 has good conference games on their schedule. Do they have the brands that the Big 10 has? No. But you could go look at the Big 12 schedule and find a schedule just as difficult maybe as Penn State's, because of what they're not playing in non-conference. But
it's true.
I mean, you look at the SEC schedules, and yes, there might be some like Texas that have easier slates, but for the most part, it's a grind. And we've talked about Oklahoma's schedule a lot. It's a grind. And Vanderbilt has one of those tough schedules as well. Mississippi State has one of those tough schedules as well. It's hard to get up out of the basement of the SEC, not like in Indiana. Indiana was able to go from basically out of nowhere to the playoff in 1 year. That's not happening in the SEC. You're not going to go from a bottom tier, middle tier team into the playoff one season. That's just not going to happen. You're going to have to grind and build to be able to do that.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to bring in a whole bunch of transfers and then be like, oh, we're here. That is just not how any of that works at all. It requires a lot more preparation to get to that point. You got to have a foundation set in some capacity. I mean, LSU gave you some of that with their quarterback, bringing in Jaden Daniels, winning a Heisman, and doing that. Diego Pavia coming into Vanderbilt and really changing the program around. But you're not just going to walk in and go 11-1. Like the Big Ten gives you that opportunity because they have so many teams at the bottom that makes it easier to do that. The SEC doesn't have that. Like, they don't have the pleasure of, as bad as Arkansas can be and Vanderbilt in years past, they look a lot better over the last couple of years. Like, they have moments where they're upsetting teams that you're like, oh, okay, maybe you can be competitive. Mississippi State will probably be back next season. They'll look a lot better. Well, they don't have a quarterback yet, but you get what I'm saying. It's not going to be as bad as it was before. So I get where Diego's going, but man, be careful, dog. You're just opening up to where everybody's going to be gunning for you this season.
I mean, you go look at the ESPN Football Power Index, which we're going to look at on tomorrow's show, and 13 SEC teams are in the top 25. Yep. There are 10 inside the top 17. And from the Big 10, you have 4 in the top 17 and just 5 in the top 20. Only 3 in the top 15. So it's just not the same. Let's look top heavy. Vanderbilt's schedule. I mean, he doesn't play a Big 10 team this year, so he doesn't have to face that fire. Maybe in the bowl game if Vanderbilt's able to get back there. But they got Charleston Southern, and then a really nice week 2 matchup with Virginia Tech in non-conference. But then they got South Carolina this year. They get Alabama, LSU, Mizzou, Texas,
get Oklahoma.
Auburn.
He gets lucky.
Yeah, Tennessee.
He avoids Oklahoma.
Gets to avoid Oklahoma. But no, man, I think he's right. The Big Ten, they got a lot of teams in the playoff last year. The SEC got left out a little bit because they beat up on each other. But I think this year things kind of flip a little bit. Although it's looking like it's going to stay at 12 teams, maybe even for the foreseeable future. We'll see as the leaders meet apparently in Western North Carolina to further discuss future playoff formats. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Talk to you then, Boomer Sooner.
Diego's funny, but we'll see what it looks like come to season time.
Who's next to speak with their chest? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, that's true.